I just came to the realization that, like, if you're 40 years old, you're like you're never gonna find love. Like, oh my god. Sorry, I woke up like really, really emotional because I was married for, oh my god, I need to stop. Um, I was married for over 20 years, and like I was so used to being a wife. Like I loved being married, you know? Like I love being a wife. I love having like that one person I love coming home to and like venting all my to. And now it's like, yeah, you date people and like sparks fly, and then it's just like, oh, I found better, you know?
This is another classic case of a woman who had a loyal husband, a stable home, and 20 years of shared history, and still said, "I'm bored," so she left.
Have you ever wondered what happens when an entire generation of men collectively decides that they've had enough, walks away from the traditional expectations of dating, marriage, and relationships, and discovers a profound sense of peace in the process? Across the world, from the bustling cities of China to the streets of Western societies, we're witnessing a quiet revolution where men are choosing solitude over struggle, self fulfillment over societal pressure, and personal happiness over obligations that no longer serve them. This shift is reshaping society in ways that few could have predicted just a decade ago. And by the end of this video, you'll understand not only why this is happening, but also why many believe there's no turning back, no matter how desperately some may call for it. If you're finding value in this kind of straightforward, no nonsense discussion, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others who need to hear this message, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell and select all so you get every single video the moment we release it and stay up to date with more great Angry Guy content. Also, if you're serious about taking control of your financial future in these uncertain times, check out Angry's Crypto Academy, where you can learn how to protect and safeguard your assets and grow your wealth through understanding how to buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrency effectively. The Academy is linked in the description of this video, so pause right now if you need to and go check it out. It's a resource that could make a real difference for you. And if you're enjoying these Angry Guy videos and want to show some support, you can buy me a Red Bull using the link in the description. It's a simple way to keep the energy high and the content coming. Let me take you back to a scene that's becoming increasingly common in parks across China. Groups of women gathering together, holding up signs that openly advertise their desire to find a husband, their availability for marriage, and their willingness to connect with men who might be interested. These are not isolated incidents. They represent a growing phenomenon where millions of women are facing a stark reality: a massive shortage of men who are willing to step into traditional roles of dating, marriage, or even long term commitment. Reports and observations point to over 100 million women in this position, often referred to in cultural terms as leftover women, who are now actively seeking partners in ways that were once unimaginable. But here's the question that lingers in the air: where have all the men gone? Why are so many men, not just in China, but globally, especially in Western societies, choosing to step back entirely from pursuing relationships with women? This isn't about a sudden disappearance, it's about a deliberate choice. Men are refusing to date, to marry, to cohabitate, and in many cases, even to form close friendships that could lead to more. What we're seeing is a wave of desperation emerging among women who, in previous years, confidently asserted their independence, told men to leave them alone, and emphasized that they didn't need traditional partnerships to thrive. Now, with economic pressures mounting, economies teetering on the edge in many Western countries, rising costs of living, and uncertainties that make solo survival challenging, these same voices are shifting. Women are expressing fear, anxiety, and a newfound urgency for men to return, to approach, to date, and to provide the stability that was once taken for granted. But men aren't responding the way they used to. They've walked away, found genuine peace in their own company, and are showing no signs of looking back. Think about that for a moment. After years of being told they weren't needed, that their role was outdated or even problematic, men listened. They internalized the message, adapted, and redirected their energy inward. What was once portrayed as loneliness has transformed into solitude, a chosen state of calm, productivity, and self reliance. Men have traded the chaos of modern relationships for the simplicity of lives built on their own terms. This shift didn't happen overnight. It stems from a fundamental reevaluation of what relationships offer men today. Many men have come to see marriage and long term partnerships as high risk endeavors with limited rewards. The prospect of committing to a relationship where access to intimacy is restricted, where raising children comes without full parental authority, and where there's always the underlying concern of fidelity. These factors have made many men pause and reconsider. Add to that the perception that women can sometimes bring unnecessary conflict or drama into interactions, and it's no wonder that solitude starts to look appealing. Men aren't angry in a destructive way anymore. They've moved past that. They've achieved a level of acceptance and peace that allows them to focus on hobbies, careers, personal growth, and simple joys without the constant pull of external expectations. In China, this manifests dramatically because of demographic imbalances combined with cultural shifts. For years, preferences for male children led to a surplus of men. But now, evolving social dynamics, women advancing in education and careers, setting higher standards for partners, have flipped the script in urban areas. Women who focused on building successful lives are now encountering a pool of men who are either unwilling or uninterested in meeting those elevated expectations. Men, observing the broader global trends, are opting out. They're not chasing, not pursuing, not investing time and resources into courtship that feels one sided. Globally, in Western societies, the story echoes even louder. Decades of cultural changes have reshaped how men and women interact. Movements that aimed to empower women sometimes came at the expense of vilifying traditional male traits. Men were labeled as inherently problematic for displaying natural behaviors, for expressing masculinity, or simply for existing in shared spaces. Terms were coined to criticize everyday actions, like how men sit comfortably on public transport, turning innocent moments into points of contention. Legal systems in many countries have been perceived by men as biased, particularly in family matters, where outcomes in divorce or custody battles often leave men feeling vulnerable and stripped of fairness. Women, empowered by these changes, created environments where approaching someone could be risky. Stories abound of men being accused of harassment for polite conversation, for a glance at the gym, or for offering help. Social media amplified this, with videos recorded and shared to shame men publicly, sometimes destroying reputations over misunderstandings. Online groups emerged where women shared details about dates, warning others and effectively blacklisting men based on subjective experiences. Dating became a minefield. Expensive outings with no guarantee of mutual interest, demands for provision without reciprocity, and a culture that encouraged using others for validation or entertainment. Men paid attention. They learned from the experiences shared by fathers, brothers, and friends who went through difficult divorces, lost access to their children, or faced financial ruin. They saw patterns in behavior that suggested relationships often involved more extraction than partnership. Paternity concerns, emotional manipulation, and the constant need to prove worthiness, all these weighed heavily. And when society repeatedly broadcast that men were not essential, that women could thrive independently with support from institutions or communities, men took it to heart. They stepped back, not out of bitterness, but out of logical self preservation. As Kevin Samuels often pointed out in his direct style, there comes a season for everything, and for many women who embraced certain attitudes, that season of reckoning has arrived. Men didn't vanish, they evolved. They realized that being alone doesn't equate to loneliness when you're at peace with yourself. Relationships that were once seen as the pinnacle of adult life now appear shallow to many, built more on external validation than genuine connection. Women who proclaimed they brought everything to the table discovered that the table itself wasn't enough for men who could build their own. Instead, men embrace minimalism. By nature, many men thrive with fewer complications. They trimmed away the unnecessary, the drama, the financial burdens of supporting others, the emotional toll of navigating constant tests and expectations. What emerged is a lifestyle of quiet luxury, affordable comforts, time for pursuits that matter, rest without guilt, and resources kept for personal goals. Men are traveling solo, building businesses, hitting the gym consistently, reading, gaming, or simply enjoying uninterrupted peace. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. They're rediscovering hobbies abandoned in past relationships, reconnecting with old friends on their terms, and prioritizing health, mental, physical, and financial. Historically, men have always stood as buffers between women and the harsher aspects of reality. They took on dangerous jobs, provided protection, and shouldered responsibilities to create safer, more comfortable lives. But when that role was devalued, when men were told they were disposable or toxic for fulfilling it, they withdrew that protection. Now, women are encountering reality unfiltered, the difficulty of managing everything alone in a tough economy, the absence of traditional suitors, the silence where once there were messages and invitations. Daily, social media fills with videos from women expressing frustration, how dating apps are barren of quality matches, how men no longer offer to pay or pursue, how survival feels impossible without partnership. Some plead openly for men to return, others demand it, but the response is crickets. Men have tuned out the noise. They've stopped sending money to online profiles, stopped planning elaborate dates, stopped investing attention where it's not reciprocated. Pattern recognition has trumped promises. Observable actions speak louder than words. Women made choices based on the height of empowerment, assuming the safety net would always be there, whether from men stepping in or from societal structures. But as economies strain and those structures falter, the backup plan of turning to men isn't working. Men have moved on, thriving in their independence, preserving their earnings, and focusing on self care. Society may feel the ripples, birth rates declining, families forming less frequently. But for the men who walked away, life has never been better. This movement, often called men walking away, or similar phrases, represents a profound awakening. It's not about revenge, it's about reclamation. Men reclaiming their time, their peace, their resources, and their joy. And as we watch this unfold, one thing becomes clear: the genie is out of the bottle. Men have tasted freedom, and they're not giving it up. This profound shift we're witnessing isn't just a fleeting trend or a phase that will pass with time. It's the culmination of years, if not decades, of accumulated experiences that have led men to a point of no return. Picture this: a man in his 30s or 40s, someone who grew up being told that his role was to provide, protect, and pursue, only to enter adulthood and find that those very instincts were increasingly criticized or rejected. He watched as society evolved, as messages became louder that traditional masculinity was something to be reformed or even eradicated. He saw friends and family members navigate relationships that ended in heartbreak, financial devastation, or prolonged legal battles. He observed the double standards, the shifting expectations, and the way genuine efforts were often met with indifference or suspicion. At some point, something clicked. Why continue pouring energy into a system that seemed designed to extract without giving back in equal measure? Why risk everything when peace was achievable on the other side of walking away? That's the story of millions of men today. They're not hiding or running, they're simply redirecting their focus. They've built lives that revolve around their own well being, their own goals, and their own definitions of success. Gym routines are consistent, careers are advancing without the distraction of constant relationship management, savings accounts are growing because resources aren't being diverted elsewhere, and evenings are spent in quiet enjoyment rather than negotiation or conflict resolution. Travel happens on a whim. Solo trips to places that inspire or relax without the need to compromise on itineraries or budgets. Friendships with other like minded men deepen, creating support networks based on mutual respect and shared interests rather than obligation. This is the luxury of simplicity that many men have discovered, a lifestyle where less truly becomes more. In contrast, the desperation we are seeing in certain circles paints a different picture. Women who once celebrated independence are now voicing concerns about the future, concerns about financial stability, about companionship in later years, about building families in an environment where partners are scarce. Social media platforms are filled with content expressing bewilderment. Why aren't men approaching anymore? Why are dating apps filled with silence instead of initiative? Why do men seem content on their own? These questions reveal a gap between expectation and reality. For years, the narrative was that women held all of the cards, that they could set the terms, and men would follow. High standards were encouraged, selectivity was praised, and the idea that men should prove themselves endlessly was normalized. But standards work both ways, and when men began applying their own standards of peace, reciprocity, and genuine compatibility, the dynamic changed entirely. Consider the economic layer added to this. In many Western countries, inflation has eroded purchasing power, housing costs have skyrocketed, and job security feels more precarious than ever. Women who entered the workforce in droves, achieving educational and professional milestones, now face the full weight of supporting themselves without the traditional safety net of a partner's contribution. That's not to diminish their capabilities. Many are thriving, but for a significant portion, the reality of solo provision in a harsh economy is hitting hard. Combine that with declining birth rates and aging populations, and the urgency intensifies. Governments in various countries are even discussing incentives for family formation because the societal implications are becoming impossible to ignore. Yet incentives from institutions can't replace the organic willingness that's been lost among men. Men have seen too much to be swayed back easily. They've witnessed how quickly admiration can turn to resentment in relationships, how provision is expected, but appreciation is rare. They've experienced or heard countless stories of partnerships where one side bears the majority of the load while the other maintains options or exits. The legal landscape hasn't helped. Systems that often favor one party in disputes have made commitment feel like signing up for potential ruin. False accusations, though not the majority, have been weaponized enough times to make caution the default setting. Why roll the dice when the house seems to have an edge? Solitude eliminates the risk entirely. And let's talk about the cultural reprogramming that's occurred. Boys growing up today are immersed in messages that question their inherent value. From school programs that address behavioral issues disproportionately in boys to media portrayals that often cast men as flawed or comedic relief. The subtle and not so subtle conditioning adds up. But something interesting is happening. Many young men are rejecting that narrative early. They're seeing the examples set by older men who walked away and found contentment, and they're following suit. Online communities, podcasts, and content creators discuss these topics openly, providing roadmaps for building independent lives. Knowledge is spreading. Knowledge about financial independence, emotional resilience, and the benefits of selective association. This isn't about assigning blame, it's about acknowledging consequences. Actions and cultural shifts have ripple effects, and we're living through one of the largest social recalibrations in modern history. Women who embrace certain ideologies assumed the infrastructure would hold. The idea that independence meant never needing anyone while still having access when desired. But human nature doesn't work that way. When one group repeatedly signals that another is unnecessary or problematic, eventually the message is received and acted upon. Men received it loud and clear. They adapted, not with fanfare or protest, but with quiet withdrawal. Now, as the reality settles in, the calls for men to come back are growing. A video surfaced of women in parks with signs, forums filled with discussions about the dating drought, articles ponder the future of relationships. Some express genuine reflection, wondering where things went off course. Others double down, insisting men need to change further. But the men who have found peace aren't listening to either. They've muted the noise, literally and figuratively. Notifications from dating apps are turned off. Social media feeds are curated for positivity, and energy is conserved for personal growth. Think about the daily life of a man who has fully embraced this path. He wakes up without arguments over trivial matters, plans his day around his priorities, eats what he wants without negotiation, spends his money on or investments that benefit him directly. Weekends might involve hiking with friends, working on a passion project, or simply resting without guilt. There is no walking on eggshells, no decoding mixed signals, no performing to maintain approval. It's freedom in its purest form, and once experienced, it's addictive. Why trade that for uncertainty? In China, the phenomenon has unique roots tied to the one child policy's long term effects, creating a gender imbalance that favored men for years. Ambitious women pursued careers, delayed marriage, and set high bars for partners. Education, income, height, background. Many men facing those requirements alongside global trends of disengagement simply opted out. Why compete in a marketplace that feels stacked against average earners when self sufficiency is viable? Rural men stay in villages. Urban men focus on personal goals. And the result is parks filled with parents and women seeking matches that aren't materializing. Western parallels are evident in declining marriage rates, plummeting birth rates in developed nations, and surveys showing increasing numbers of young men reporting no interest in relationships. It's a global convergence driven by shared observations. Technology plays a role too. High speed internet, streaming services, gaming, and solo entertainment options fill time that once required social pursuit. But it's more than distraction, it's fulfillment. Men are content because they've redefined what a good life looks like. Critics might say this is selfish or short sighted, that society needs families to function, but society also needs willing participants, and willingness can't be mandated. Forced or coerced relationships benefit no one. They create resentment, not harmony. Men recognize that now more than ever. They're choosing authenticity over obligation, peace over performance. As we move forward, the landscape will continue evolving. Some women are adapting, focusing on self improvement, lowering barriers, and seeking genuine connections. Others remain entrenched, waiting for change that may never come. Men, meanwhile, keep building. They're investing in health, wealth, and happiness on their terms. The message is clear. The old bargain is off the table. New arrangements will require mutual respect, balanced contributions, and genuine appreciation. Things that were always supposed to be foundational, but somehow got lost along the way. For men watching this, if you've walked away or are considering it, know that you're not alone. Millions are on the same path, finding that solitude breeds strength, not weakness. Prioritize yourself unapologetically. Build the life you want, surround yourself with positivity, and protect your peace at all costs. The world may shift again, but you'll be grounded in something solid, your own foundation. Let us dive deeper into what this new reality truly means for everyday men who have made the choice to step away from the old script and write their own story instead. Imagine waking up every single morning knowing that your day belongs entirely to you. No unexpected demands pulling you in 10 different directions, no silent negotiations over how time or money will be spent, no underlying tension waiting to surface over something small that somehow becomes large. That is the baseline experience now for a growing number of men who have embraced this path of intentional solitude and self prioritization. They are not isolated hermits hiding from the world. They are active participants in life, but on terms that respect their boundaries, their energy, and their long term well being. These men have learned to treat themselves with the same care and investment they once reserved for others, and the results speak for themselves in quieter stress levels, stronger finances, better physical health, and a deep sense of inner calm that many describe as the first real peace they have ever known. Take a typical weekday for one of these men, perhaps someone in his late 20s or early 30s living in a mid sized city anywhere in the Western world or even in urban Asia, where similar shifts are quietly taking root. He rises at a time that suits his natural rhythm, not dictated by someone else's schedule or preferences. Breakfast is simple and nourishing, prepared exactly the way he likes it without debate over dietary restrictions or last minute changes. He heads to work or logs in remotely, focused and productive because his mind is not divided by unresolved arguments from the night before or worries about how a partner is feeling that day. Lunch might be a quick meal prepped in advance or grabbed from a favorite spot, paid for with money that stays in his own ecosystem rather than flowing outward to support lifestyles or habits he never signed up for in the first place. After work, the evening opens up like a blank canvas. Some evenings he hits the gym, pushing personal bests in lifts or cardio because his recovery is optimized. No late nights spent soothing emotions or managing conflicts that drain energy reserves. Other evenings, he meets up with a small circle of male friends for drinks, conversation, or activities where mutual respect is the default and drama is non existent. These friendships have grown stronger in the absence of romantic entanglements because time is given freely rather than squeezed in around someone else's demands. On quieter nights, he might dive into a book, work on a side project that could one day become a business, play video games that provide genuine relaxation, or simply sit with a good drink and reflect on how far he has come. Weekends stretch even further, road trips planned on a whim, hiking trails explored without compromise, concerts attended solo or with buddies where the focus is pure enjoyment rather than performing for approval or managing someone else's experience. Financially, the transformation is profound and often underestimated by those who have never experienced it firsthand. Without the constant outflow to dates, gifts, shared expenses that are rarely shared equally, or the looming shadow of potential family obligations, money compounds in ways that feel almost miraculous at first. Savings accounts grow steadily. Investments have room to breathe and mature. Retirement funds build without interruption. And discretionary income funds, experiences that enrich life directly, better equipment for hobbies, courses for skill development, travel to destinations that inspire growth and wonder. Many men discover a minimalist streak they never knew they had, realizing that true luxury is not about accumulating possessions, but about having the freedom to choose what enters their space and what stays out. A clean, organized apartment with just enough high quality items becomes a sanctuary rather than a storage unit for shared clutter or symbols of status meant to impress others. This financial independence also creates a powerful buffer against the uncertainties of the modern economy. When layoffs hit or inflation spikes, These men are positioned to weather the storm far better than those carrying the weight of multiple dependents or shared debts that can quickly spiral out of control. They can pivot careers if needed, take calculated risks on entrepreneurial ventures, or simply downshift temporarily without catastrophic consequences. The peace of mind that comes from knowing you control your own safety net is difficult to overstate. It removes a layer of chronic stress that most people accept as normal, but that quietly erodes health and happiness over time. Now, contrast this with the emerging narratives we see online and in real world gatherings, women expressing genuine confusion and concern about where all the eligible, willing men have disappeared to. Dating apps that once overflowed with messages now sit silent for days or weeks at a time. Social events that used to draw balanced crowds now skew heavily female as men opt for their own gatherings or solo pursuits. Coffee shops, bars, and public spaces no longer buzz with the same energy of approaches and flirtations because men have internalized the message that initiating contact can carry risks far outweighing potential rewards. The fear of misinterpretation, of being recorded without consent, of having a simple interaction twisted into something negative online. These are not abstract worries, but lived realities that have shaped behavior on a massive scale. In response, many women are turning to more public displays of availability. Signs in parks, posts on social media, explicitly stating openness to relationships, even organized events designed to facilitate meetings that feel organic but are increasingly forced. Parents, especially in cultures where family legacy is paramount, are stepping in to arrange introductions or pressure their daughters to lower standards that were once held as non negotiable. The term leftover women that was once whispered now appears in mainstream discussions as a societal issue requiring solutions. Yet the solutions proposed often focus on incentivizing men to return rather than addressing the root causes that drove them away in the first place. But incentives only work when the underlying value proposition makes sense. And for many men, the math simply no longer adds up. Why accept limited intimacy, shared finances that flow predominantly one way, potential loss of authority in child rearing decisions, and the ever present risk of legal entanglements when solitude offers certainty, growth, and joy without those downsides? Why re enter a dynamic where natural masculine traits are scrutinized or suppressed when self acceptance brings far greater fulfillment? These are not rhetorical questions thrown out in anger. They are rational calculations made daily by men who have seen the evidence stacked against traditional commitment. Younger generations are absorbing these lessons even earlier. Teenage boys and men in their early 20s watch content that breaks down relationship dynamics with unflinching honesty, learning pattern recognition skills that previous generations acquired only through painful personal experience. They see the outcomes of marriages that end in division of assets, of relationships that drain resources without reciprocity, of accusations that can derail careers overnight. Armed with this awareness, they approach interactions, if they approach at all, with eyes wide open, prioritizing self development over pursuit. University campuses that once pulsed with social energy now report quieter scenes as young men focus on studies, fitness, gaming communities, and career preparation. Fraternities and social clubs still exist, but the drive to seek validation through romantic conquests has diminished significantly. This generational shift ensures that the trend is not temporary, but self reinforcing. As more men demonstrate that a rich, meaningful life is possible without traditional partnerships, others follow naturally. Role models emerge, not the flashy influencers chasing clout, but everyday men quietly building empires of personal satisfaction. Fathers who went through difficult divorces advise their sons to protect themselves first. Older brothers share stories that serve as cautionary tales. Online spaces provide support and validation for choices that mainstream culture still struggles to understand. Even entertainment reflects the change. Movies and shows that once centered on romantic pursuit as the ultimate goal now compete with content celebrating individual achievement, brotherhood, and self mastery. Video games offer immersive worlds where progress is tangible and rewarding. Streaming platforms deliver endless options for personal enjoyment without social obligation. Technology, far from isolating people, as critics claim, has actually empowered men to curate environments that nourish rather than deplete. On the policy front, governments are beginning to grapple with the downstream effects. Declining birth rates, threatening economic stability, aging populations without sufficient young workers to support them, social systems strained by fewer traditional family units contributing taxes and labor. Proposals range from financial bonuses for marriage and children to immigration adjustments to housing incentives for young families. Yet these top down approaches miss the core issue. People must want to participate, and desire cannot be manufactured through subsidies alone. Trust, once eroded, takes far longer to rebuild than institutions seem willing to acknowledge. For women navigating this landscape, adaptation varies widely. Some are engaging in genuine self reflection, examining past behaviors and attitudes that may have contributed to the current state of affairs. They are investing in personal growth, building stronger friendships, pursuing meaningful careers, and approaching potential connections with humility and reciprocity. These women often find that when they lead with authenticity and respect, quality men, who never fully disappeared but simply became highly selective, take notice. Mutual effort creates possibility where one sided expectation created deadlock. Others, however, remain anchored in older paradigms, insisting that men must change to accommodate preferences that were shaped during a different era. They demand pursuit while maintaining barriers, expect provision while emphasizing independence, and express frustration when reality fails to conform to expectation. The disconnect grows wider as time passes because the men best positioned to meet traditional roles are precisely the ones who have opted out most thoroughly. The truth is that society is in the midst of renegotiating the social contract between men and women, and the old terms are no longer viable for a significant portion of the male population. Any new agreement will require acknowledgement of mutual needs, balanced contributions, clear boundaries, and genuine appreciation expressed consistently. It will demand that both sides approach with maturity, accountability, and a willingness to build rather than extract. Until or unless that happens on a broad scale, men will continue thriving in their chosen solitude. They will keep lifting heavier weights, earning more money, traveling farther, resting deeper, and laughing louder with friends who share their values. They will protect their peace with the same ferocity they once used to protect others, understanding now that self preservation is not selfish, but foundational. The message echoing through all of this is simple yet profound. Men have discovered that they matter, not as utilities or providers or protectors to be called upon when convenient, but as complete individuals deserving of the same care, respect, and investment they were once expected to give without question. Once that realization takes hold, there is no unseeing it. The path forward is clear, paved with intention, discipline, and unapologetic self regard. Let us take this exploration even further by examining the subtle yet powerful ways in which the shift is reshaping not just individual lives, but entire communities, economies, and cultural narratives that once seemed unbreakable. Men who have chosen this path of self prioritization are no longer scattered outliers. They are forming loose networks of like minded individuals who support one another through shared knowledge, experiences, and resources. Online forums and private groups have become modern day lodges where men exchange practical advice on everything from building wealth and optimizing health to navigating social situations with minimal exposure to drama or risk. These spaces are not filled with bitterness or resentment, but with a quiet confidence born from real results. Men celebrating personal milestones, sharing workout progress, discussing investment strategies, and offering encouragement to those just beginning their journey toward independence. There is a camaraderie here that feels authentic because it is built on mutual uplift rather than obligation or performance. In person, this translates to meetups focused on activities rather than courtship, hiking groups that tackle challenging trails, motorcycle clubs that plan long rides, fishing trips that last entire weekends, or simple barbecues where conversation flows freely without the undercurrent of competition for female attention. Men are reconnecting with one another in ways that previous generations may have taken for granted before romantic pursuits dominated so much time and energy. Brotherhood is being redefined not through shared hardship in relationships, but through shared enjoyment of life on equal terms. These connections provide emotional support without the complications that often arise when romantic partners enter the equation, proving that deep human bonds do not require traditional pairing to be meaningful or fulfilling. Economically, the impact of millions of men retaining their earnings and directing them inward is only beginning to be felt on a macro level. Consumer spending patterns are shifting as disposable income, once funneled into dating, engagement rings, weddings, and family support, now flows into different sectors. Fitness equipment and gym memberships are booming. Sales of high quality men's grooming and clothing lines are rising steadily. Demand for adventure travel and solo friendly experiences is growing, and investments in tools for personal productivity like home office setups or workshop equipment are seeing surges. Real estate trends show more men opting for smaller, efficient living spaces designed purely for their own comfort and functionality rather than family sized homes meant to accommodate partners and children. Developers are starting to notice, with some markets seeing increased construction of studio and one bedroom units tailored to single occupants who value location, amenities, and low maintenance over square footage. Businesses that once relied heavily on male spending driven by relationship goals, fine dining restaurants known for date nights, jewelry stores pushing engagement pieces, luxury florists, even certain entertainment venues are feeling the pinch as men redirect funds toward experiences that benefit themselves directly. At the same time, industries catering to male self improvement and leisure are thriving. Supplement companies focused on health optimization, creators of high end audio equipment for personal enjoyment, manufacturers of premium gaming setups, and providers of skill based courses in everything from martial arts to financial trading. The message from the market is clear: when men invest in themselves first, entire economies feel the ripple effect in ways that reward quality, durability, and personal satisfaction over fleeting displays meant to impress others. On a societal level, institutions that long assumed male participation as a given are now scrambling to adapt. Universities that once balanced gender ratios through outreach to male students are seeing application numbers from men decline in certain fields as young men question the return on investment of expensive degrees when high earning trades or entrepreneurial paths offer greater autonomy and faster financial independence. Military recruitment faces challenges as the traditional appeal of providing and protecting loses resonance with men who no longer see themselves as default protectors of a society that question their value. Even political landscapes shift subtly as men disengage from systems perceived as hostile or exploitative, focusing instead on local communities or personal spheres where their efforts yield tangible results. Healthcare provides another fascinating lens. Men who prioritize themselves are showing up more consistently for preventive care, regular checkups, blood work to optimize hormones and nutrition, dental maintenance, mental health support through therapy or coaching tailored to male experiences. Emergency room visits for stress related issues decline as chronic tension from difficult relationships fades away. Life expectancy and quality of life metrics for these men trend upward because they have the time, resources, and motivation to treat their bodies as the primary asset they truly are. Sleep improves without nighttime arguments or worries about partner satisfaction. Recovery from workouts accelerates with consistent routines, and overall vitality increases as energy is no longer siphoned off into emotional labor that went unappreciated. Parenting dynamics, where they still exist, are also evolving among men who walked away earlier but may have children from previous relationships. Many focus intensely on being the best possible fathers within the boundaries set by legal agreements, showing up fully for their time with kids, providing financial support without resentment because it is directed solely toward their offspring, and modeling healthy independence that their sons and daughters can learn from. They teach self reliance, emotional regulation, and the importance of boundaries, creating a new generation less likely to repeat cycles of dysfunction. Sons see that peace is possible without constant striving for female approval, while daughters witness men who respect themselves enough to walk away from disrespect, setting a higher standard for future partners. Culturally, storytellers are beginning to catch up. Independent filmmakers and content creators produce narratives that center male self discovery without requiring romantic resolution as the payoff. Podcasts hosted by men who have embraced this lifestyle rack up millions of downloads, offering long form discussions on philosophy, history, strategy, and practical living that resonate deeply with listeners seeking substance over superficiality. Books on stoicism, minimalism, and personal mastery dominate bestseller lists among male readers, providing intellectual frameworks for the choices they have already made intuitively. Music shifts too. Artists speaking to male experiences of liberation and self possession gain followings that rival traditional love song crooners. Globally, the patterns repeat with local flavors. In Japan, the phenomenon of herbivore men who opt out of dating and marriage has been documented for years, now blending with broader trends of minimalism and personal fulfillment. In South Korea, young men protest perceived inequalities by disengaging from societal expectations, focusing on careers and hobbies instead. In Europe, countries with generous social safety nets still see men choosing solitude as cultural dynamics mirror Western shifts. In Latin America and parts of Africa, where traditional roles remain stronger, early signs emerge as access to global information spreads awareness of alternative paths. The common thread is access to knowledge. Once men see that peace and prosperity are achievable alone, the appeal becomes irresistible. Women responding to this new reality fall into distinct camps that reveal much about adaptability and self awareness. A growing number are engaging deeply with the feedback loop, recognizing that past attitudes and behaviors contributed to the current landscape. They invest in therapy to understand attachment patterns, read extensively on relationship dynamics from balanced perspectives, cultivate hobbies and friendships that enrich their lives independently, and approach dating, if they choose to date at all, with humility, clear communication, and genuine reciprocity. These women often report finding higher quality connections because they attract men who value mutual respect over one sided provision. Success stories emerge quietly. Partnerships built on shared values, balanced effort, and appreciation expressed freely in both directions. Another group focuses on building parallel lives of independence, embracing careers, travel, female friendships, and personal achievements without centering men as necessary components. They find fulfillment in creativity, community service, spiritual growth, or entrepreneurial pursuits, proving that the tools for a rich life are available to anyone willing to claim them. Some choose intentional singlehood or child free living by design, redirecting energy once reserved for seeking partners into causes or passions that leave lasting legacies. A third segment struggles more visibly, cycling through frustration, demands for change directed outward, and periods of reflection that sometimes lead to growth and sometimes do not. Social media amplifies these voices, videos lamenting the absence of good men, posts insisting standards remain non negotiable, gatherings where collective grievance overshadows individual accountability. Yet, even here, cracks appear as reality persists. Some women begin questioning narratives they once accepted fully, wondering if empowerment was misconstrued as entitlement or if independence was sold as never needing support while still expecting it on demand. The path forward will likely involve hybrid outcomes, pockets of traditional families forming among those who align on mutual terms, larger numbers of intentionally single individuals thriving independently, and new forms of connection emerging that prioritize quality over quantity. Technology may play a role, with matchmaking evolving to emphasize compatibility testing, shared values assessments, and transparency from the outset. Legal systems may reform as imbalances become unsustainable, creating fairer frameworks that encourage rather than discourage commitment. For men already on this journey, the message remains consistent: stay the course, protect your peace with vigilance, invest in growth relentlessly, surround yourself with positivity deliberately. The world may shift around you, but your foundation is yours to control. Build strength in body, clarity in mind, abundance in resources, and depth in character. Live fully in each day without apology or hesitation. This transformation, though disruptive, carries potential for healthier dynamics overall. Relationships entered freely by fully realized individuals, families formed intentionally with shared vision, societies composed of people who choose participation rather than default into it. The old ways served their time. The new reality demands evolution from all sides. Let us push this examination even deeper into the personal transformations that occur when men fully commit to this path of walking away and building lives centered on their own peace, purpose, and prosperity. One of the most profound changes many men report is the complete rewiring of how they experience time itself. In the past, time was often fragmented: stolen moments between obligations, rushed evenings after work, spent managing emotions or planning dates, weekends sacrificed to social expectations or family demands that left little room for genuine restoration. Now, time stretches out luxuriously, becoming a resource that belongs entirely to the individual. A single Saturday can feel like a mini vacation because it is filled deliberately with activities that recharge rather than deplete. An hour in the evening reading a book or listening to music is not interrupted by notifications demanding attention or arguments over trivial matters. This reclamation of time creates a compounding effect. More energy leads to greater productivity, which leads to better results in career or personal projects, which in turn generates more resources and freedom, creating a virtuous cycle that builds momentum year after year. Many men describe the shift as finally learning to live in the present moment without the constant background hum of anxiety about the future of a relationship or the fallout from past conflicts. They plan long term goals with clarity because those goals are no longer subject to negotiation or veto by a partner with different priorities. Retirement looks different when savings are not divided or drained by shared expenses that disproportionately benefit one side. Travel dreams become reality sooner because funds are not diverted to weddings, honeymoons, or supporting lifestyles beyond what was agreed upon. Home ownership happens on a faster timeline when mortgages are calculated for one income rather than stretched thin across two with mismatched contributions. Vehicles, tools, and toys that enhance life. Motorcycles for weekend rides, high quality cameras for capturing adventures, workshop setups for building and creating are acquired without guilt or justification because the money earned is spent according to personal vision rather than external approval. Emotionally, the healing that takes place is deep and often unexpected. Men who carried years of quiet resentment from feeling undervalued or taken for granted find that resentment dissolving naturally in the absence of daily triggers. Self esteem rebuilds on solid ground. Achievements are owned fully. Compliments from others land more meaningfully because they are not filtered through the lens of obligation. And failures are processed without the added weight of disappointing someone else. Therapy or self reflection practices become more effective because there is space to implement insights without immediate sabotage from dysfunctional dynamics. Many men discover layers of themselves they never knew existed. Creative talents dormant since childhood, intellectual curiosities never pursued because time was consumed elsewhere, physical capabilities unlocked through consistent training without interruption. The man who once defined himself by how well he provided for others now defines himself by how fully he lives for himself. And that shift brings a quiet but unshakable confidence that radiates in every interaction. Relationships with family of origin often improve dramatically as well. Without the filter of a romantic partner who may have created tension or division, men reconnect with parents, siblings, and extended family on their own terms. Holidays become choices rather than obligations filled with landmines. Visits are planned when energy is high and boundaries are respected. Financial support to aging parents, if given, comes from abundance rather than obligation that breeds resentment. Nieces and nephews receive the best version of their uncle, present, engaged, and modeling healthy independence rather than stressed and distracted by partnership drama. The family unit benefits from a man who is whole rather than fragmented. Friendships, as mentioned earlier, reach new depths. Men invest in bonds that were once sidelined by romantic pursuits. Long distance friends are visited regularly because travel budgets are not constrained. Group trips, golf outings, fishing expeditions, international adventures happen annually rather than once in a blue moon. Conversations evolve beyond surface level because there is time and emotional bandwidth for real substance. Men talk openly about goals, challenges, victories, and philosophies of life in ways that were previously rare. Iron sharpens iron in these circles, creating networks of accountability and celebration that rival anything found in traditional marriages. Spiritually, many men experience an awakening. Without the constant noise of relationship maintenance, space opens for contemplation, meditation, prayer, or exploration of philosophical traditions. Some dive into ancient texts on Stoicism or Eastern practices that emphasize inner mastery. Others reconnect with faith communities on their own terms, attending services or study groups because they choose to rather than to appease a partner. Nature becomes a cathedral. Long hikes, camping under stars, quiet mornings watching sunrises all provide moments of profound connection to something larger than oneself. This spiritual dimension adds richness to daily life that material success alone cannot provide. Creatively, doors swing wide open. Men who always wanted to write a book finally sit down and do it because evenings are free. Musicians pick up instruments again after years of neglect. Artists fill sketchbooks without judgment. Photographers chase golden hour light across landscapes. Builders construct workshops or custom furniture for the sheer joy of creation. Entrepreneurs launch side businesses that grow into full time ventures because risk tolerance is higher when there is no one else depending on stability in the same way. The creative output of men walking away is quietly reshaping culture. Podcasts, YouTube channels, blogs, inventions, art, all flowing from individuals who finally have the bandwidth to express what has been inside them all along. Physically, the changes are visible and measurable. Consistency becomes the norm rather than the exception. Gym habits stick because recovery is prioritized. No late nights arguing or making up after fights. Nutrition improves when meals are planned for one rather than compromised by differing tastes or budgets. Sleep schedules optimize without co sleeping disruptions or emotional stress, keeping minds racing. Bodies transform, strength increases, body fat decreases, posture improves as the weight of constant people pleasing lifts. Men in their 40s and 50s often report feeling better than they did in their 20s because the lifestyle supports regeneration rather than degeneration. Testosterone levels stabilize or rise naturally as stress plummets and healthy habits compound. Vitality becomes a baseline rather than a rare good day. Intellectually, growth accelerates exponentially. Books that gathered dust on shelves are finally read cover to cover. Online courses are completed because focus is unbroken. Languages are learned for upcoming solo travels. History, science, philosophy all become feast rather than famine. Men devour knowledge for its own sake, not to impress dates or win arguments. Debates with friends sharpen thinking without devolving into emotional warfare. Critical thinking skills honed through pattern recognition in relationships now apply to every area of life. Investments are made wisely, news is consumed skeptically, opportunities are evaluated clearly. The mind becomes a precision instrument rather than a scattered resource stretched thin. Financial mastery reaches levels previously unimaginable for many. Budgeting becomes second nature when every dollar is accounted for and directed intentionally. Debt disappears faster without shared financial leaks. Wealth building strategies compound. Index funds grow undisturbed. Real estate portfolios expand. Business equity accumulates. Many men reach financial independence or early retirement milestones years ahead of schedule because the drag coefficient of traditional relationships has been removed. They work because they choose to, not because they must support lifestyles or prepare for potential family courts. Side income streams diversify. Rental properties, dividend stocks, online content creation, consulting all flourish when time and energy are abundant. Travel transforms from occasional vacations into a lifestyle component. Solo trips to Europe, backpacking through historic cities. Southeast Asian adventures exploring temples and street food. African safaris witnessing wildlife in raw form. South American treks through rainforests and mountains. All become regular occurrences rather than once in a lifetime events. Men learn to enjoy their own company in foreign lands, dining alone without awkwardness, navigating new cultures with confidence, collecting experiences that expand perspective far beyond what couple travel can offer. Passports fill with stamps, memories fill with stories, and the world becomes smaller and more accessible because decisions are made by one rather than negotiated by two. Even simple daily pleasures take on new meaning. A perfectly brewed morning coffee savored in silence, a drive with windows down and favorite music blasting, a steak grilled exactly to preference without compromise, a movie watched without pausing for commentary or arguments over choices. A book read late into the night because no one is waiting up. These small moments accumulate into a life that feels rich in ways that grand gestures in troubled relationships never could. The cumulative effect of all these changes creates men who are fundamentally different: calmer, stronger, clearer, wealthier, healthier, happier, and more purposeful than their former selves or their still entangled peers. They become the men they always wished they could be when distractions and obligations kept them playing smaller than their potential. They walk through the world with quiet authority, not needing validation because they have validated themselves through action and results. Women notice, often approaching more respectfully, sensing the shift in energy from desperation to abundance. Other men notice, asking questions, seeking advice, beginning their own journeys. Society notices, even if it struggles to articulate what it is witnessing. This is the true power of men walking away. Not destruction of the old, but creation of the new. Not bitterness toward the past, but gratitude for the lessons that led to freedom. Not isolation from humanity, but deep connection to self and selected others. Not selfishness without purpose, but self-preservation that enables greater future contribution on chosen terms. The men who have made this choice are not waiting for permission or approval. They are living fully in each day, building legacies of personal excellence that will outlast any temporary relationship. They are proof that a man can thrive, truly thrive, when he chooses himself without apology. And as more men wake up to this reality, the shift accelerates. The examples multiply, the peace spreads, the standard rises. What did you think about everything we discussed today? Do you agree with the observations or do you see things differently? Leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. I read them all and value hearing your perspectives. Like the video if you like it, don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA, men walking away, and cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.